then I don't know. At some point you just rage punch words into Google like gamepad behavior flaky. Fuck this shit. I don't know what I typed in. It is Sunday, my dudes, and it's for me time to post a little dev diary update for what I've been up to the past week. It's been super productive in terms of what I got into the game in these few days. That doesn't mean everything went super easily, but here's a list. I've got a camera look-ahead system. It moves ahead of the car, so the car is no longer constantly in the center, and that's it's more interesting to look at because there's more stuff happening in the area of your screen instead of the car being static. It also helps with drivability because you can see more of what's coming at you actually, because the car is out of the way. It wasn't really difficult to implement. Again, just a little bit of Pythagorean math. I also implemented walls, and you can style it any way you want with the stroke styles in the vector editor, or you could stack a bunch of lines on top of each other to make it look like, let's say, tire stacks or just guardrails, etc. So that was cool. And then off of the back of that, I also implemented tree lines. Well, it could be used for all sorts of sprites, of course. So what I'm doing now is you draw a line in a group called trees. For now, like it's arbitrary, but any path inside a certain group, the game will follow along the outline of that path. So I would eventually make a selection of shrubberies that would be placed randomly instead of repeating the same tree except just rotating it. It really adds dimension, first of all, more than just the static buildings, and immersion. It makes it look more like a world, and it's cool. I have a system now that will end the session. So there's a timer, and if the time runs out, your new waypoint becomes the pits again, like your garage. And then the game detects after time has run out and you hit the waypoint of the pits, it'll show you the menu. It'll disable the controls, and it'll show you the lap times. Like, lap times themselves have not been implemented yet, but this offers me a way to go from the main menu into the game and then back into the menu without having to do a reload per se. Whoops. Did some more work on 3D matrix boards, like let's say dynamic objects in the world. Instead of it just being static images sliding over each other, it's slowly starting to look more like a world where stuff is happening. Like, it's still looking very dead because we don't have any people in there. That's also something badly needed, but I need to think about how to, let's say, implement crowds. So until that, we have some other stuff. So I've got a digital ad board that could just display images. So, you've got the fake sponsors in there. Those could come across. But I built it in such a way that it's using CSS masking, so you could put anything in there. So we could put HTML in there, showing lap times, showing race classification or whatever, and then mix it up with sponsor logos or like other types of graphics. And besides being able to show that, you can of course transition between that. So it really becomes like what you see in sports stadiums or around racetracks these days. Also, a very important update for this week that I got in is gamepad controls. Anyway, yeah, good updates this week. And I'll show a little bit more detail on my computer in a second. I added the concept of walls or collidable objects or immovable objects, let's say. So there's already, of course, collision detection code in the world, as you saw with the waypoints. It's the simplest circular collision detection. If the
combined radii of the two circles is smaller. No, is if the distance between the two center points is smaller than the combined radii, that's a collision. And so in the code, if a collision happens, you can say, okay, what next? And so what's generally logical is to just move the player entity 1 or 2 pixels outside of the circle. And what that means is basically you bump into this and you can't just go everywhere anymore. It'll just stop you from doing so. Let me dang it, find an example. So yeah, using that routine, basically, I could do the same with placing arbitrary sprites. So if you look into this level file, there's this line, and there's this line, and that line, and a bunch of more lines, and they are in a group called trees. So the code does something super similar. Was that here? Oh yeah. It finds in the SVG an element called trees. If it does find that, it goes and find paths inside that. So these two. Then at intervals of 500 pixels, it will place a sprite of a tree. These are, I believe, these are 512 pixels along this path. And let me show you. It's super cool for immersion, I think, because you once again get a little sense of depth and a little sense of real world. So these were 2 updates to the game that I was really happy with. It didn't really take me long because, of course, the routine of placing this and this, it looks a lot like placing the waypoints across the racetrack path. So it was actually quite easy to implement, and it had a great effect. Now, something else that was also pretty easy to implement, except for when it comes to Chrome, is a gamepad controller. I implemented some on-screen controls and it was horrible, and then I realized, wait, if I can just connect a game controller with Bluetooth to my phone, that should be pretty alright actually. It's hella cool, man. And Chrome even implements the rumble, the vibration. I'm gonna do that for when you go off track, but it's super hard to find decent documentation. Like, everybody points to the same old MDN document that doesn't really apply to Chrome. And then I don't know, at some point you just rage punch words into Google like gamepad behavior flaky, fuck this shit, I don't know what I typed in. It was a pain. Like, it should have been so easy. It was horrible. But now I'm super happy to have it implemented and to control the games with the gamepad instead of a keyboard. That's suboptimal, let's say. So what I did next, and this took a long time to get right because I had made a mistake somewhere, was the ending the session, basically. So this was always a little bit out of sync, and I fixed that by doing that as well. What I wanted to do is introduce a clock. So a free practice is 10 minutes. As soon as the clock runs out, and let me show. Oh, okay. So race control will say session is finished. The team will say, okay, now go back to your garage box. Stuff like this would show up and with a list of lap times or like race classification if it's a race. And then it would have buttons to like go back to the main menu or go to the next session, whatever. We'll figure that out. But I'm happy I got all this implemented. Now it's just a matter of ironing out the bugs. Damn it. One little thing that I forgot to show. Ugh, I have to do it again. Anyway, is engine pops. I wanted to make the car a bit more interactive, or I guess not really, but respond to your input. And so what would be really cool is get those little pops when you take off the accelerator. I don't even know how it works in real life, but sometimes you have an engine, like a little flame out of the exhaust, you hear a loud pop. It's, I'm going to say, quintessential to the racetrack experience. So I wanted to get something in there. I am still thinking about how to synthesize this sound because, like, obviously you couldn't get that sound isolated because there's always going to be engine noise around it. So yeah, I'm not really sure how to get a pop. But what I did do was you get a little flame animation when you're at full speed and you release the accelerator. Let me try and show. It's not super obvious. So that was a lot of hours spent for little gains. Okay, so you see the brake lights, but also in between the brake lights you see a little fart coming out of the car. Ooh, okay, well, let me brake. Yeah, well, I think it's cool. It's just silly. Let me see if I can do this. Yeah, so I got this book like a couple of years ago. It's called Go Faster. And it's full of pictures like this. But see, yeah, I don't really know what the idea is behind this. I guess you can imagine your own cars. But you know that there's some legendary, iconic liveries in here that, look at this, man. Big fat lines, retro colors. Oh, look at this. Or this. Or this. So I'm gonna steal me some liveries from in the past and update some cars in the next few weeks. That should be fun. Anything else? If you have any ideas, suggestions, questions, please drop them in the comments. Hit like and hit subscribe. You know how YouTube works. And yeah, I hope to hear from you. Bye.